the underutilized 37,000 federal buildings so that it can be converted into housing and the proceeds of sale can be used to pay down the deficit. It just warms my heart. Think of the beautiful family rolling up in their U-Haul to unload their belongings into their wonderful new home in the former headquarters of the CBC. And then we're going to get the gatekeepers out of the way of our farmers, aren't we? Here we are with the 5th most arable land per capita on Earth, and yet 4 in 5 Canadians have had to cut back their diet because they can't afford food. Well, it's no wonder. Government red tape and taxes are weighing down our farmers, making them uncompetitive. Let me tell you a brief story about the little miracles of Manotick, a tiny little tomato farm in the south end of Ottawa. They have greenhouses, and the government was charging a carbon tax on the CO2 they were releasing into the greenhouse, even though the plant life absorbs the CO2. Apparently, Justin Trudeau missed that day in grade 8 science class, right? Meanwhile, this drives up tomato prices from this little farm, so it's more affordable to buy a Mexican tomato in Manotick than a Manotick tomato in Manotick. We're incentivizing customers to choose products that have to be transported by truck and train all the way from Mexico, burning more fuel and releasing more pollution than if we lowered the cost of our own farmers. And now they want to go further and ban 30% of our farmers' fertilizer, which of course, right, what would be the consequence? We need to use more land to grow the same food, which would mean our tractors and combines would have to travel longer distances, burning more fuel. Of course, our farmers would be even less competitive, forcing more of our food production to other countries that don't have these rules, and that food would have to be transported by ship, truck, and train, burning yet more fuel. And didn't we learn during COVID how irresponsible it was for us to depend on the rest of the world to take care of our basic needs? Didn't we learn? Yes. Poilievre government will axe the carbon tax, get rid of the fertilizer tariff and the fertilizer cuts, and get the red tape off the back of our farmers so that they can produce more food. We can be a self-reliant nation that feeds itself in the breadbasket of the world. To be a free nation, we need to be energy independent. Here we are in Trudeau's Canada. He's against the development of our natural resources, but has no problem with about 130,000 barrels of overseas oil that come by tanker from the Middle East to the east coast of Canada. Money leaving our country to fund foreign dictatorships. Meanwhile, we have the 3rd biggest supply of oil on planet Earth and the most ethical oil and gas industry anywhere in the world. So Poilievre government will repeal the anti-energy law, Bill C-69, so we can build Canadian pipelines with Canadian steel to get Canadian energy to Canadian consumers. Plan to increase its production by 400,000 barrels a day so that we can fully replace all of the overseas oil coming into our country, and within 5 years end import of dictator oil altogether here in Canada. And we will unleash the production of our 1,300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas. We have enormous advantages in this area, but interestingly, when Trudeau took office, there were 15 proposed natural gas export plants proposed. And guess how many got finished? 0. Not one. How many cubic feet of natural gas do you think we ship offshore to overseas in Canada? Zero. Zero. Now, this led to the incredible embarrassment just last month, where Trudeau had to violate his own sanctions against Putin to send back turbines that we are maintaining for Putin's pipeline. We're doing this in Montreal. Supposedly the mayor of Montreal doesn't want Canadian pipelines, but has no problem with the city having maintenance work done on Putin's pipelines. So we're sending the turbines back to Russia so Putin can pump his gas into Germany, raising money to finance his war against Ukraine. This begs the question, why aren't we supplying Europe with natural gas? We have the gas. In fact, the shortest shipping distance from North America to Europe is Newfoundland. And it turns out the shortest shipping distance from North America to Asia is British Columbia. We have a shipping advantage. We also have a weather advantage. You know how you turn gas into a liquid so it fits on a ship? Cool it down. What do we have in Canada? Cold weather. Right? You people don't know anything about cold weather out here. Come on, stop it. You have no idea. Do you know it gets so cold in Ottawa in the wintertime, Justin Trudeau is seen with his hands in his own pockets? Out of the way, quickly approve natural gas liquefaction projects, cool that gas down to negative 161 degrees so we can ship it to Asia and close down dirty coal-fired electricity plants, ship it to Europe to break European dependence on Putin and transform those dollars for dictators into paychecks for our people in Canada. I'm going to ban all my ministers from any involvement in the World Economic Forum. We're going to also remove the gatekeepers who would try to control what we see and what we say. You've heard these woke warriors. You know the woke warriors. Are there any woke folk here today? We know what the woke are really about. First of all, they're woke and broke, right? But second of all, really the movement is not about social justice or racial equality. It's about control. It's about them telling you what you're allowed to do. Every day they're inventing a new word you can't say or another word that you must say. And now they're giving the CRTC, under Trudeau's Bill C-11, the power to regulate what appears in your Facebook news feed or your YouTube stream, right? And they say it's because they want to promote Canadian content. Well, what is Canadian content? They actually can't tell us that. So, for example, a CBC story out of Washington, D.C. that has been plagiarized from CNN that doesn't even mention the existence of Canada would be considered Canadian content. But the local soccer mom in Victoria, British Columbia, who is posting on Facebook to raise money for the local soccer contest, well, she would not be considered Canadian content. Even though she is a Canadian, she's posting about Canada and in a Canadian community, that would not be Canadian enough because, of course, she would not have a lobbyist that would get her a hearing from the CRTC. And God forbid anything politically incorrect appeared in your post. Surely that would be suppressed so that nobody could see it. Meanwhile, on our university campuses, the woke crusaders trying to silence anyone who's not part of the politically correct consensus. They pushed Jordan Peterson. They pushed Jordan Peterson off of the University of Toronto, right? Yeah. Well, listen, you don't agree with Jordan Peterson? Debate him. Right? Good luck with that. Debate because they lose the debate. When three ideas are allowed to circulate, only the best ones rise to the top. And the woke warriors know that they cannot win in an open contest of ideas, so they use control. Control is the reason why we are so divided in this country, my friends. Why does control divide people? Because if one person gets more control, someone else has to get less. People fight over control, and that's why they're divided. Freedom is different. It is infinite. If your neighbor gets more freedom, you don't get less, you get more freedom. If your Muslim friend gets more religious freedom, you as a Christian, Sikh, or Hindu will have more religious freedom, right? If your small businessman in the neighborhood gets more economic freedom from red tape, you'll have the freedom to buy his products more affordably, and your teenager might have the freedom to go and get a job working for him. One person's freedom is another person's freedom, and that's why while we fight over control, we fight for freedom. Let's stop, divide, and conquer, and let's unite for freedom. Charter of Rights and Freedoms defines the most elemental freedom of all, the freedom without which you can have no other freedom, and that is the freedom of expression. Section 2B. To be or not to be? That is the question. As Shakespeare would put it, my answer is this. A Poilievre government will repeal C11, and I will require every university that wants federal funding to commit to upholding freedom of expression for students. You know that this is my last rally tour before the big day. Can you imagine that? It's winding down, this big, long leadership race. We've had 77 rallies like this one across the country. Over 90,000 people RSVP. Over the last 5 months, you've all been a big part of my life. I've gone to events, and I make a rule every time I go to one of these things. I stand and I stay and I shake every single person's hand until the place is empty. Every single person who wants to meet me gets a chance to meet me. And what that means is that, no, thank you. It's a great privilege. And I've heard a lot of stories. People come to me and they wait in line for an hour. And they tell me their stories. And they tell me some incredible things. You know, the soldier who served our country and risked his life in the most dangerous place on earth, the Kandahar province of Afghanistan, and came back with medals only to lose his job just because of a personal medical decision. Or the miner I met in Timmins, who wasn't able to afford the $2.50 a liter diesel to drive to Thunder Bay to see his dying parents one last time. Or the guy taping up his work boots in St. John's, Newfoundland, because he can't afford new ones. Or the countless young people who did everything we asked them to do. They worked hard, they got their degree, they got a job, and still they can't even dream of ever owning a house. The people who feel like they've been bullied and pushed around, that the government looks down on them and calls them horrible names just for expressing their values and standing up for their rights. You know something? I've heard these stories, and I've heard them directly from the people telling them. They've looked me in the eyes, and they have shared their hearts with me over this campaign. A lot of people have said that my supporters are angry. But you know what I've seen in those people's eyes? I have seen pain. I have seen suffering. I have seen people who are just hanging on by a thread. And I wanted you to know what else I've seen. I've seen hope. I've seen people come to our rallies with hope in their life. And it's going to get better. I have seen hope from the immigrant who came here to work as a doctor but has been blocked from getting a license, that one day we can incentivize our provinces to allow a merit-based system so those doctors can actually work as doctors. I have seen hope that we can stop stopping and starting, to get houses built, to get pipelines built, to get jobs going, to get paychecks growing, to get our life more affordable so that people can afford to fulfill their dreams. I have seen hope from the countless immigrants who came here for a better life, to escape tyranny in another faraway land, and to earn a better living for themselves and for their children, that dream will once again be achieved because of the incredible movement that we are putting together here today. I see hope in those people. And I have seen the same hope that I had as a child. I was adopted from a 16-year-old unwed mother who just lost her own mom, and so couldn't raise me. I was adopted by 2 school teachers, and they always taught me that it didn't matter where I came from, it mattered where I was going. It didn't matter who I knew, but what I could do. And I have hope that that's what this country is going to be again. That cannot be fixed by what is right with this country. We have hope. We have hope that in the words of the great John Diefenbaker, I am a Canadian, a free Canadian, free to speak without fear, free to stand for what I think right, free to oppose what I believe wrong, free to worship God in my own way, free to choose those who shall govern my country. This heritage of freedom I pledge to uphold for myself and for all of mankind. Thank you very much.